Welcome back, and on the local scene, a fishing expedition ended in tragedy on Saturday, July 23, 2016, when a Sandy Bay teenager lost his life at sea. NBC understands that 15-year-old Giovanni Sutherland Sam drowned in Clare Valley Saturday morning. Reports are that Sam went fishing with other friends when he experienced difficulty at sea and drowned. His body was retrieved by Coast Guard officials. Police are carrying out investigations. An attorney has been re-elected to Speaker of the OECS Assembly. Lawyer René Baptiste, who is president of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Bar Association, has been re-elected Speaker of the OECS Assembly. The election took place in Antigua and Barbuda earlier last week, where the OECS member states gathered for the first meeting since 2012. Ms. Baptiste has been an attorney for the past 35 years. She is a former Minister of Culture, first elected to local House of Assembly in 2001. Ms. Baptiste retired from active politics in 2010. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, will implement a Tsunami Smart Schools and Community program during the month of August. According to the Deputy Director of NEMO, Michelle Forbes, NEMO recently received funding of €60,000 to make the program a reality and will be implemented through the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CADEMA. Ms. Forbes said that they are preparing to implement the program on the Grenadine island of Union Island, as well as Rose Place in capital Kingstown. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has made it clear that the Cybercrimes Bill is not intended to control social media. The Prime Minister made the point in response to a question from the media during a news conference at the Cabinet Room on June 8, 2016. Dr. Gonsalves said, but nobody can reasonably doubt that there are problems with the growth of technology, that you have offenses which are created and things which are being done, which should be regulated, for which there should be a criminal sanction. Leader of the Democratic Republican Party, DRP, and President of the Thusian Institute of Religious Liberty Incorporation, Anissa Baptiste, has once again on IKtv registered her displeasure with some draft clauses in the Cybercrime 2016 bill, especially Clause 16. The human rights activist and DRP leader said that certain parts of the bill threatens the rights of the people.
Truth you speak can be criminalized just because someone claims that by you publishing it via a computer system, you cause them to feel humiliated, distressed, and all the other words that were used. Let's take an example. A Christian preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ publicly rebukes the immorality in the public life of a politician in society, using cyberspace for his preaching or even radio programs that are broadcasted in cyberspace. If the politician feels that his speech repeatedly published in his programmings, rebuking the politician about his sins and his immoral behavior in society, if the politician feels that that speech is harassing him because it's causing him distress, he can bring a claim in the court. He can bring a claim before the police. Let's take an example. A Christian preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ publicly rebukes the immorality in the public life of a politician in society, using cyberspace for his preaching or even radio programs that are broadcasted in cyberspace. If the politician feels that his speech repeatedly published in his programmings, rebuking the politician about his sins and his immoral behavior in society, if the politician feels that that speech is harassing him because it's causing him distress, he can bring a claim in the court. He can bring a claim before the police. And if he gets a charge, bring it before the court against the preacher. Even though the preacher may have simply been telling him the truth that God says in his word. Yes, my dear people, think about John the Baptist and King Herod in the gospel account.
In a release stated that subsection 3, paragraph B of clause 16 is dangerous because it criminalizes dissemination of information that intentionally or recklessly exposes the private affairs of another person, thereby subjecting that person to public ridicule, contempt, hatred, or embarrassment. Leader of the DRP and Associate Director of the TIRL said, Clause 28 is dangerous when we consider the impact shown on the right of religious liberty if Clause 16 becomes law. Under this Clause 28, If one is convicted of an offence under 16, and indeed any offence under this law, he will not only be required to pay the fines or go to jail or both, as seen under Clause 16, but the person could also be faced with an additional court order to pay for loss or damage caused or likely to be caused as a result of commission of the offence.
I believe that if the publication online constitutes credible threats against a person's life, credible threats, of violence against a person's property, that is already in the criminal code. That is a reasonable limitation of speech. Criminalize that. If a person threatens and shows that they have intention to carry out the threat against a person's life or against their property, that is fair. But words which do not constitute criminal behavior, words which simply cause somebody to feel humiliated or embarrassed or intimidated, whatever that may mean, because a person could lie and say, "You have distressed me by your words." A person could have vendetta against another person and say, I'm going to bring this claim against you because your words have caused me detriment to my self-esteem, whatever that means. To criminalize such words because of the effect somebody claims it has on them is dangerous to free speech. Clause 16's criminalization of cyberbullying will legalize thin-skinnedness, and this will breed more thin-skinnedness and discord in the population. People who would have usually overlooked and ignored hurtful words will now be encouraged to harbor them in their minds, and they will rush to engage the police and the courts for revenge.
IKtv News reported on June 21st, 2016 that local journalist and media communications specialist Kenton Chance has welcomed the Cybercrime Bill 2016 currently before a select committee of the House of Assembly, while also expressing some concerns. Speaking at the SVG Human Rights Association Town Hall discussion of the Cybercrime Bill 2016, Mr. Chance said that the realities of the world in which we live call for legislation to address many of the untoward, criminal even activities that are taking place online. In his presentation, Mr. Chance, however, said he was extremely concerned and unnerved by what he sees in a piece of legislation as avenues for the state to potentially criminalize journalists and their sources, many of whom might be whistleblowers. Leader of the Democratic Republican Party of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Mrs. Anicia Batiste, has condemned and is urging the immediate removal of Clause 16 of the Cybercrime Bill 2016, which was introduced into SVG's House of Parliament in June 2016.
I am horrified to think that in discussion in select committee of our country's parliament, people could use such foolish reasoning to limit the God-given free speech of the people. It is shameful to see, for example, the lack of interest in ensuring that the draft has legal certainty, preferring instead to say, oh, well, let's leave that matter of interpretation up to the evidence in the court. I am horrified to see the insanity in drafting, emphasizing what seems like the need to have revenge and carry out vendetta, seemingly ready to hunt down those who have wronged you on Facebook or on radio, for example. And I am equally horrified to see that there is absolute emphasis on ensuring the state can prosecute rather than ensuring that the law is used as a shield to protect the rights and freedoms of the people, and must only be used as a sword in a proportionate way against credible wrongs. Elected and appointed parliamentarians must understand that people do not put them into office to violate their rights and freedoms with heavy-handedness, but to protect those rights and freedoms is their sacred duty.
The bill, which is currently before a select committee of the House, is expected to be debated in Parliament at its next sitting on August 4th. Mrs. Batiste says she believes it will pass if select committee work is completed by that time. She is also invited to select committee meetings and has shared her concerns about certain aspects of the bill on radio programs. Mrs. Batiste, a former senator and holder of a Bachelor of Law degree with honours from the University of London, pointed out that Clause 16 of the bill has two main features which are dangerous to God-given and constitutionally guaranteed human freedoms of speech, press and information. In addition, Mrs. Batiste pointed out that several countries, to include Grenada, Jamaica, Antigua and Trinidad and Tobago, have already decriminalized the bill. She is therefore calling on our government to do likewise. More local news when we come back.